In the heart of a village cradled by the sprawling savanna of Zimbabwe, under the watchful gaze of ancient baobab trees, lived a young girl named Amara. Her name, meaning grace, was given by her mother, who had a fondness for the poetic nature of life. However, the poetic beauty of her name was starkly contrasted by the harsh reality that unfolded around her after her mother's untimely death. Amara's father, Chikai, once a man full of laughter and love, transformed into a figure of sorrow and anger. The death of his beloved wife left a gaping wound in his heart, one that he filled with a bitterness that was as harsh as the dry season that scorched the land around them. Each morning, as the village stirred to life with the crowing of roosters and the gentle winds whispering through the grasslands, Amara would rise from her modest bedding on the mud floor of their thatched hut. The air was always heavy with the scent of earth and the remnants of firewood smoke from the previous night's cooking. Her father, already awake, would be sitting outside staring blankly at the horizon where the sun rose with a relentless vigor. Breakfast was a silent affair, with Amara preparing porridge over the open fire. The flames flickered and danced, casting shadows that seemed to mock the somber mood between the father and daughter. Chikai would eat quietly, his thoughts evidently far away, trapped in a past filled with better days. After breakfast, while the other children in the village went off to school, Amara's reality was vastly different. Her father had declared that her place was at home, helping with chores and managing the household, just as her mother had. The educational dreams that her mother had nurtured in her were now just whispers in the wind, faint and unattainable. As the sun climbed higher, its rays beating down mercilessly, Amara would be found by the riverbank, washing clothes or fetching water in heavy clay pots. Her slender frame was deceptively strong, each movement honed by years of labor. The river was her refuge, a place where she could escape her father's oppressive presence. Here she could speak to her mother in hushed tones, her words absorbed by the flowing water. "Mother," she would whisper, "how do I bring back the father who used to laugh with us, who used to sing as he worked? This man is a stranger to me." But the only answer was the gentle gurgling of the river and the rustling of the leaves. One day, as the sun prepared to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of orange and pink, an old woman from the village approached Amara. This woman, known as Nana Ishe, was revered in the village for her wisdom and her connection to the spirits of the ancestors. "Amara," she said, her voice as crackled as the dry earth, "your heart is heavy, child. I see the shadow that follows you. You carry a burden that is too large for your shoulders." Amara looked into Nana Isha's eyes, which seemed to carry stories of their own, stories of pain, resilience, and hope. "It is my father," Amara confessed. "Since my mother passed, he has become a shell of himself and in turn has made my life unbearable. I feel trapped, Nana Ishe." The old woman listened intently, nodding slowly as the shadows around them grew longer. "There are ways of the old that can help us," Nana Ishe suggested, "but it requires courage and the willingness to traverse paths that many fear to walk. Are you ready to embark on such a journey, Amara?" With her heart pounding fiercely against her chest, Amara nodded. She knew that whatever path lay ahead, it could only lead to a better life than the one she was living now. With resolve stiffening her spine, she prepared to face whatever challenges came with the dawn. Nana Eshe smiled, her face creasing into a map of wrinkles that spoke of decades of sun and wind. "Then we shall begin at the first light tomorrow. Be ready, child. The ancestors are watching and they are waiting to guide you." As night fell and the stars blinked to life in the vast African sky, Amara felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way out of the shadow that had fallen over her life since her mother's death. As the first light of dawn painted the savannah in hues of gold and amber, Amara met Nana Eshe at the base of the ancient baobab, the spiritual sentinel of their village. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new beginning. Around them, the village was still asleep, unaware of the decisive steps Amara was about to take. Nana Eshe, carrying a small basket, led Amara to the eastern side of the tree. The ground here was covered with fallen leaves, creating a soft carpet. She reached into her basket and pulled out two small, intricately carved figures made of wood, one representing a warrior, the other a healer. "These figures," Nana Eshe began, her voice steady and sure, "represent the strength and healing your father needs. We will ask the ancestors to awaken these qualities within him once more." She handed the figures to Amara, who felt the smooth wood warm against her palms. It seemed as if the figures pulsed with a life of their own, eager to fulfill their purpose. Next, Nana Ishe produced a handful of red ochre, which she mixed with water from a small gourd. This mixture is for protection and connection. As you paint these figures, envision the bond between you and your father being mended, strong and full of understanding. Carefully, Amara painted the figures, her hands guided by a newfound determination. Each stroke was a silent plea to the spirits, each dab a call to her ancestors for intervention. When the painting was finished, they placed the figures at the roots of the baobab. Nana Eshe then began to chant in a low, rhythmic tone, an ancient invocation that seemed to stir the air around them. Amara closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her, feeling an inexplicable connection to generations past. The sun was higher now, its light filtering through the branches of the baobab, casting patterned shadows that danced around them. Nana Eshe ceased her chanting and stood in silence, her eyes closed. After a moment, she opened them and fixed her gaze on Amara. "Now we wait," she said. "The spirits have heard us. It is up to them, and your father, to allow the change." Returning home, Amara found her father in the same spot she had left him, staring out into the distance. But this morning, something was different. It was as if he sensed her approach, turning to look at her with a flicker of something like recognition in his eyes. "Amara," he said, his voice a rasp of disuse. "You went out early." "I did, father. I had something important to do," she replied, meeting his gaze with a steadiness she hadn't felt in a long time. Chikai nodded, then turned back to the horizon. Amara joined him, sitting in silence. The space between them was thick with unspoken words, yet it felt slightly less impenetrable than before. As they sat, the wind shifted, rustling the leaves of the baobab in the distance. It was as if the tree itself was whispering, its ancient voice carrying across the plains to where they sat. Amara felt a chill, not of cold but of anticipation. The day passed, and Amara continued her chores, but with a lighter heart. She could not be sure what the coming days would bring, but she felt a renewed sense of hope. The intervention with Nana Eshe had shifted something, not just in the spiritual realm, but within herself. That evening, as she prepared the simple dinner of maize porridge, Amara sang softly, an old lullaby her mother had once sung to her. To her surprise, her father joined in, his voice rusty but warm. It was the first song he had sung since her mother's passing, a small act yet profound in its implications. The baobab's whispers seemed to linger in the air, a gentle reminder of the unseen forces at play, guiding them slowly but surely toward reconciliation and peace. As the days unfurled, a subtle transformation began to weave through Amara's homestead. Her father, Chikai, though still draped in the cloak of his mourning, started to reveal glimpses of the man he had once been. Each morning, as the village woke to the embrace of dawn, there was a less oppressive silence at their breakfast. The conversations were still sparse, but now they contained small seeds of interest about the day ahead. One morning, Amara found her father outside, his hands busy with the earth, as he tended to the small garden that her mother had cherished. His actions were tentative, as if relearning the language of the soil. Amara watched him from the doorway, her heart swelling with a mix of sorrow and hope. Seeing him there, amidst the green sprouts and earth, was like witnessing the first rain after a relentless drought. "Father," she called softly, stepping into the light. Chikai looked up, his face shielded by the brim of his hat. A slight smile broke through his usual stern expression. "Amara, come see. The okra has begun to sprout," he said, his voice carrying a fragile note of pride. Amara approached and knelt beside him, her fingers gently touching the tender green shoots. "It's beautiful, father," she replied, her voice laced with encouragement. Together, they spent the morning in the garden, Chikai teaching her how to detect the needs of the plants by the feel of the leaves and the color of the soil. It was a lesson her mother had once shared with him, now passed down through him to her. The cycle of knowledge, broken by grief, was mending, intertwining their lives with new strands of connection. The days continued to roll forward, each one peeling back a layer of the shadow that had settled over their home. Chikai began to resume his duties in the village, his presence at the council meetings bringing nods of respect from the other elders. They too had noticed the shift, welcoming him back with a warmth that had been reserved during his absence. Amara, with her father's gradual return to the community, found her own burdens lightening. She resumed her education, the village teacher welcoming her back with open arms. The children, who had always been her friends, greeted her return with cheers and playful tugs. Her life, once stunted by her father's grief and the rigid expectations of her role, began to blossom into something fuller, enriched by learning and laughter. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of purple and fiery orange, Amara sat beneath the baobab tree. She felt its ancient presence around her, the air pulsing with the stories it held within its massive trunk. Here, she often felt closest to her mother, her presence woven into the whispers of the leaves. Chikai joined her, settling his weathered body against the broad trunk. They sat in companionable silence, watching the stars begin their nightly dance across the heavens. "Amara," Chikai began, his voice more robust than it had been in months. "I have been lost in my sorrow, but I see now how much I have missed. Your strength has guided us back, like the ancestors guide our steps from the shadows." Amara turned to look at her father, seeing him, a leader and a father, renewed by the acceptance of his vulnerabilities. "Father, we walk together," she replied, her voice steady and clear. "Just as the baobab stands with us, strong and enduring, we will continue to grow together." The night grew deep around them, the stars above a brilliant tapestry of light. The baobab, timeless and enduring, stood watch over them, its whispers a gentle lullaby in the breeze. In the embrace of its ancient wisdom, Amara and Chikai found a renewed bond, a promise of continuity and hope, threaded through the legacy of those who had walked the path before them. As the season turned, bringing with it the renewal of rain that dressed the savannah in lush greens and vibrant wildflowers, the village thrummed with the pulse of life. The rains not only nourished the earth, but seemed to cleanse the air, washing away the remnants of past sorrows that had lingered like an unwelcome drought. Amara and Chikai found themselves woven more deeply into the fabric of village life, their home once more a place of warmth and laughter. On a particularly clear day, when the sky was an unblemished canvas of blue, the village prepared for the annual harvest festival. This celebration, a vibrant testament to the community's resilience and spirit, was marked by dancing, feasting, and the telling of tales beneath the starlit sky. For Amara, this year's festival held a special significance. It was not just a celebration of the harvest, but of the harvest of healing that her family had experienced. Chikai, rejuvenated by the turning of his heart and the rekindling of his spirit, took it upon himself to lead the preparations. His voice, once muted by grief, now carried commands and laughter in equal measure as he organized the young men in setting up the central pavilion. Amara, adorned in a vibrant dress of red and gold that mirrored the sunset, was tasked with gathering the children for the storytelling circle. She led them to a large clearing where logs had been arranged around a central fire pit, the firewood stacked in anticipation of nightfall. The children's eyes were wide with excitement, their laughter mingling with the chirps of crickets and the rustle of leaves. As dusk embraced the village, the fire was lit, casting a warm glow that flickered across the eager faces gathered around. Nana Eshe, the revered elder, took her place at the head of the circle. Her eyes sparkled with the magic of 1,000 stories as she prepared to weave a tale not just of mythical creatures and legendary heroes, but also of the values that bound their community: unity, courage, and resilience. "The story I tell tonight," Nana Eshe began, her voice a melodious echo in the crisp air, "is of the baobab's whisper, a tale passed down through generations, much like the seeds of the baobab itself." The children leaned in, their attention rapt as Nana Eshe spun the yarn of a young warrior who, much like Amara, had faced great adversities. With the help of his ancestors, whispered guidance through the leaves of the baobab, and his own steadfast courage, the warrior brought prosperity and peace to his clan. Amara listened, her heart swelling with pride and a deep-seated connection to the tale. It mirrored her own experiences so closely that it seemed the ancestors themselves might have crafted this story for her. After the tale, the festival erupted into a cacophony of drumbeats and rhythmic dancing. Amara joined in, her movements a celebration of her heritage and her personal victories. Chikai watched from the sidelines, his heart full, as he saw the vibrant life his daughter embraced, a life he had almost stifled under his grief. Later, as the fire dwindled to glowing embers and the children's eyelids drooped with the weight of a night spent in jubilation, Amara sat beside her father, their shoulders touching in silent solidarity. "Father, the story tonight, it felt like it was ours," Amara whispered, her voice tinged with wonder. Chikai nodded, his eyes reflecting the last flickers of the firelight. "Yes, my child, our stories are not so different from those of our ancestors. We face many of the same battles, feel the same fears, and rejoice in similar triumphs. Tonight, we add our own chapter to the legacy of our people." Together they watched the stars twinkle above, each one a testament to the enduring spirits of those who had walked before them, their lives a continuous thread in the fabric of their culture, each generation stitching its own vibrant patch into the ever-expanding quilt of their history. In the days following the festival, the village returned to its usual rhythm of daily chores and occasional celebrations. However, for Amara and Chikai, the sense of unity and shared destiny nurtured during the festival lingered, infusing their actions with a deeper sense of purpose. The bond between father and daughter, fortified through shared suffering and mutual recovery, now served as a cornerstone of their family's legacy. One morning, under the expansive sky that stretched clear and blue over the village, Amara approached her father with a proposition that had been simmering in her mind for days. Her steps were hesitant, yet determined as she found him repairing the fence around their compound, a task that, until recently, he had undertaken alone. "Father," Amara began, her voice cutting through the morning calm, "I have been thinking about Mother's stories, the ones she used to tell about the other villages and the traders from distant lands. Do you remember?" Chikai looked up from his work, the mention of his late wife always enough to pause his movements. He wiped the sweat from his brow, nodding for her to continue. "Yes, I remember. She had a way with tales, made you feel as if you were journeying with her across deserts and mountains," he replied, a soft smile touching the corners of his lips. Amara took a deep breath, bolstering her courage. "I want to start a project, something that brings those stories to life. A place where the village children can learn not just about our traditions, but also about the world beyond our borders. I want to build a learning hut." The idea hung between them, bold and fraught with challenges, yet shining with potential. Chike considered her words, the concept slowly taking root in his mind. He had long harbored a fear of the wider world, seeing it as a vast, unknowable abyss that had claimed his wife's health during her travels. Yet looking into Amara's eyes, alight with determination and hope, he recognized the same spirit that had driven his wife to explore, to learn, and to return home enriched by her experiences. "It's a big task, Amara, but a worthy one," he finally said, the decision resonating in his voice. "Your mother would have been proud to see you take up such a cause." Bolstered by her father's support, Amara set about organizing the project. She spoke with the village elders, who offered wisdom and guidance, and with the local craftsmen, who promised to help construct the hut. The village teacher, too, pledged a trove of books and materials, eager to support a new avenue for education. Construction of the learning hut began on a warm morning, with the village turning out to lend hands and tools. The site chosen was under a large acacia tree, its wide canopy providing shade and a natural gathering place. As the structure took shape, with walls of mud and thatch rising from the earth, the project quickly became a symbol of the village's communal spirit and aspirations. Weeks later, with the hut completed, Amara organized an opening ceremony. Children and adults alike gathered, buzzing with curiosity and excitement. The interior of the hut was simple yet inviting, with mats on the ground for seating and shelves filled with books and artifacts. As Amara stood before the community, ready to introduce the space dedicated to learning and exploration, she felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. She spoke of her mother, of the stories that had sparked this dream, and of her hope that the hut would serve as a beacon of knowledge and inspiration for generations to come. Chikai, standing at the back, watched his daughter with a heart full of mixed emotions, pride, love, and a tinge of sorrow for the wife who had planted the seeds of this dream. As the villagers applauded Amara's initiative, he felt a profound connection to the cycle of life and legacy, a dance of shadows and sunlight that played out across the generations, each contributing their verse to the ongoing saga of their people. As the learning hut became a bustling hub of activity within the village, Amara observed the transformation not only in the children who attended her sessions, but also in the adults who occasionally peeked in, curious about the lessons from distant lands. The hut was more than a place of learning. It was a bridge connecting the village to the vast world beyond, and a mirror reflecting their own rich cultural heritage. One afternoon, as the sun cast golden spears through the acacia leaves, a traveler from a neighboring region arrived in the village. His arrival stirred excitement and a bit of apprehension, as visitors were rare and often brought news or goods from the outside. The man, named Tendai, was a storyteller by trade, his life dedicated to the preservation and sharing of Africa's oral traditions. Tendai was welcomed with the customary hospitality. After he rested and partook in a meal, he was introduced to Amara and the learning hut. His eyes sparkled with interest as he walked around the small structure, running his fingers over the books and artifacts that adorned the shelves. "This is a remarkable endeavor, young Amara," Tendai commented, his voice deep and melodic. "I travel far and wide, and it is rare to see such a passion for learning in such a welcoming space." Amara beamed with pride, pleased that her efforts were recognized by someone so well-versed in the educational traditions of their broader culture. "Would you share some of your stories with us? The children, and frankly all of us, would cherish the wisdom and tales you bring." Tendai agreed, and a gathering was quickly arranged for that evening. As twilight deepened, casting the village into silhouettes against the fading light, the community gathered around a newly kindled fire near the learning hut. Tendai stood, outlined by the flames, his presence commanding and gentle. He began with a story of the origins of the baobab tree, weaving a tale that spoke of resilience and unity. His words painted pictures in the minds of his audience, taking them on a vivid voyage through time and myth. As he moved through tales of cunning spiders and wise elephants, each story was a thread linking the listeners to the enduring tapestry of African folklore. Amara watched the faces around her, lit by the flickering firelight, their expressions shifting with every turn of Tendai's tales. Children laughed, elders nodded with understanding, and even the hardest of hearts seemed to soften under the spell of the storyteller's art. The evening ended with a chorus of thanks and applause for Tendai, who humbly accepted the gratitude, but turned the praise back to the village, and particularly to Amara. "It is your dedication to keeping these traditions alive that truly enriches your community," he said, his gaze admiring the learning hut once more. Inspired by Tendai's visit, Amara decided to extend an invitation to other storytellers and scholars who traveled across the continent. Over time, the hut evolved into a cultural nexus, each visitor adding layers of knowledge and perspective to the vibrant mosaic of the village's educational landscape. Chikai, ever supportive, took particular delight in crafting seats and tables for the hut, each piece adorned with carvings that told their own stories of crops, animals, and daily village life. His work became as much a part of the learning experience as the books and stories told within those mud walls. Seasons cycled, rains fell, and crops grew under the watchful eyes of the elders, but the true harvest was in the minds and hearts of all who partook in the wisdom housed under the acacia's shade. In this place, past and future converged, allowing the village to gaze with clearer eyes at the horizon, eager for the dawn of each new day and the stories it would bring. Months melded into one another, each marked by the moon's waxing and waning as it cast its silvery gaze over the village. Amara's learning hut had blossomed into a beacon of cultural and educational revival, its influence rippling through the community. Stories told within its walls during the day found new life in the homes at night, as parents and children recounted the tales and lessons learned. One evening, as a cool breeze stirred the leaves of the acacia and the moon climbed high, casting a serene glow over the village, a special celebration was underway. It was the anniversary of the hut's founding, and the entire village gathered to honor the occasion. Lanterns hung from the branches of the acacia, swaying gently and casting soft shadows on the ground, while the air was filled with the scent of roasting maize and sweet yams. Amara, standing beside the hut, welcomed the villagers as they arrived, each person carrying a small offering, be it grain, fruit, or vibrant cloths, to contribute to the feast. The atmosphere was festive, yet there was a palpable sense of reverence for the knowledge and unity the hut had fostered over the year. As the feast commenced, Chikai took a moment to stand beside Amara, his eyes reflecting the firelight and pride. "See what you have created, my daughter," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You have sown seeds of wisdom and reaped a community united in its thirst for knowledge." Amara smiled, her heart full. "It is we who have done this, Father. Together with every story told and every lesson learned, we build stronger ties. The celebration continued into the night, with music filling the air. Drummers beat their instruments with fervor, their rhythms echoing the heartbeat of the village, while dancers moved with grace and power, their feet stirring the dust into swirling patterns. Midway through the evening, Tendai, who had become a frequent visitor and a beloved figure in the village, stood to address the gathering. His voice carried clearly under the moonlit sky. Tonight we celebrate more than a year of learning. We celebrate a legacy being written with every story shared and every question pondered. This hut, under the watchful eyes of your ancestors, serves as a bridge between the old ways and new horizons. He then turned to Amara, a warm smile spreading across his face. Amara, you have ignited a flame that will burn brightly for generations. Let us all take a moment to offer our stories as gifts to the future. One by one, villagers came forward, each sharing a brief tale or anecdote, their words weaving a rich tapestry of human experience and wisdom. The young spoke of lessons learned, the old recounted tales of days past, and all savored the shared bond of their collective heritage. As the moon reached its zenith, a quiet settled over the crowd, a reflective pause as they all considered the journey of the past year. The fire crackled, a beacon in the night, its sparks ascending to join the stars. Finally, as the last story was told and the last drumbeat faded, Amara stood once again. Thank you everyone for embracing this dream with such love and enthusiasm. Let us continue to gather, to learn and to grow, for in each of us flows the blood of ancestors who dreamt of brighter days, and in our hands rests the power to shape those dreams into reality. The villagers, moved by her words, raised their voices in agreement, their song rising to the heavens, an anthem of gratitude and hope beneath the moon's watchful eye. As the celebration wound down, they left the feast not just as individuals, but as custodians of a living history, bearers of a flame kindled by a young woman's vision and a community's embrace. The year waxed on, carrying the village through the cycles of rain and sun that marked the passage of time in the sprawling savannah. Amara's learning hut, now firmly established as the heart of the community, continued to flourish, drawing not only the young minds eager for knowledge, but also the elders who found a renewed sense of purpose in passing down their wisdom. One morning, as a gentle mist lifted from the lush greenery, heralding a day of bright sunshine, an idea sparked in Amara's mind, an idea inspired by the tapestry of stories and lessons that had colored the past year. She proposed the creation of a festival, one that would celebrate not only the stories from within their lands, but also those from beyond, inviting storytellers and scholars from neighboring villages and distant regions. With the enthusiastic approval of the village elders and the help of Tendai, plans for the festival were set into motion. Word spread quickly, carried by traders and travelers, and soon the excitement reached far-flung communities, igniting interest and anticipation. As the day of the festival approached, the village buzzed with activity. Stalls were erected where artisans could display their crafts, pottery painted with intricate designs, woven baskets dyed with vibrant colors, and jewelry crafted from beads and metals. The aroma of cooking filled the air, a promise of the feast to come, as families prepared dishes that represented the best of their culinary traditions. The festival dawned with a brilliant sunrise, the sky a canvas of pink and orange hues. Visitors from neighboring areas streamed into the village, greeted by the beats of drums and the ululations of welcoming villagers. The air thrummed with the languages of many tongues, a symphony of human connection and cultural exchange. Amara, dressed in a robe adorned with symbols of the baobab and the acacia, her mother's favorite trees, moved through the crowd, a gracious host connecting the threads of various narratives into the weave of the day. Chikae stood by her side, his presence a steady force amid the swirl of festivities. The highlight of the festival was the storytelling circle, presided over by Tendi. As the sun set, painting the sky in streaks of purple and gold, people gathered around a large bonfire in the center of the village. Tendai began with a tale of unity and strength, his voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the flames. Following his lead, visitors and villagers alike shared their stories, each narrative a thread in the rich fabric of shared human experience. Under the cloak of night, lit only by the fire and the stars above, a traveler from the north shared a tale of the desert, where the sands whispered secrets of old civilizations. A woman from the east brought a story of the mountains, where dragons were said to guard ancient treasures. Each story, while unique, carried underlying themes of courage, love, and resilience, universal chords that resonated with every listener. As the night deepened, the festival became more than a gathering. It transformed into a living mosaic of cultures, a celebration of the diversity and unity that defines humanity. Amara took a moment to step back, her eyes sweeping over the crowd. In their faces, illuminated by firelight, she saw the reflection of her own dreams, dreams of a world connected not by land or blood, but by the shared tales of its people. The festival closed with a collective dance around the bonfire, the movements of the dancers echoing the ebbs and flows of the stories they had shared. As the fire reduced to embers, and the first hints of dawn colored the eastern sky, a profound sense of fulfillment settled over the village. In the quiet that followed, as the last of the visitors made their way home and the villagers retired to their beds, Amara and Chikai remained by the dying fire, watching the smoke rise to meet the sky. In the silence, they shared a look of mutual understanding and pride, a recognition that the songs of the savannah, carried on the winds of their voices, would echo through generations, a legacy of knowledge, unity, and endless possibility. In the season that followed, the whispers of the successful festival traveled like wind across water, reaching distant shores and inviting curiosity and admiration from neighboring regions. The stories that had been shared at the festival continued to ripple outwards, inspiring other communities to seek out Amara's village and learn from its vibrant tapestry of culture and education. With the increasing interest, Amara found herself at the heart of a growing network of cultural exchange. The learning hut became a node in a larger web connecting various peoples, a place where knowledge and traditions flowed as freely as the waters of the river that bordered the village. One crisp morning, as the air held the promise of rain and renewal, a group of educators from across the region arrived at the village. They had heard of Amara's initiatives and were eager to replicate her model of community-based education in their own locales. Amara welcomed them with the same warmth and hospitality that had become the hallmark of her leadership. The visitors were introduced to the daily routines of the learning hut, participating in interactive lessons and discussions that covered not only local law, but also practical knowledge such as agriculture, craftsmanship, and basic healthcare. The exchange was fruitful, with every participant, including Amara, absorbing new ideas and perspectives. As the week progressed, a new plan began to form, a network of learning hubs modeled after Amara's hut, each tailored to the needs and traditions of its own community, but linked by a common goal of fostering education and cultural preservation. The educators worked together, drafting a blueprint that would enable them to support each other through resources, knowledge, and moral support. Meanwhile, Chikai found himself deeply involved in mentoring other craftsmen and builders who were interested in constructing similar structures in their villages. His expertise in using local materials and traditional techniques was invaluable, and he took pride in passing on these skills, ensuring they were preserved and cherished. As the educators prepared to depart, they gathered around the baobab tree for a final meeting. The tree, a silent witness to the week's exchange, seemed to stand a bit taller, its leaves whispering in the gentle breeze. Each person placed their hand upon its trunk, a symbol of their connectedness and shared commitment. "We leave here enriched, not just with knowledge, but with a sense of community that spans beyond our village borders," one educator remarked, her voice tinged with emotion. Amara, standing among her new colleagues and friends, felt a surge of gratitude and responsibility. "This tree has seen many seasons, many changes," she reflected aloud. "May it also see the growth of a new tradition, one that bridges communities and sustains our shared heritage." As the party made their way down the village path, the impending rain finally began to fall, light at first, then growing in strength. The rain seemed to cleanse the air, leaving a sense of freshness and possibility. Amara stood in the rain, letting it wash over her, feeling as though it were blessing their new endeavor. The next months were busy as the network took shape. Communication between the hubs was maintained through regular meetings and messages, often carried by travelers. Each hub developed its own identity, yet remained a part of the larger collective that Amara had envisioned. One evening, as Amara closed the door to the learning hut, she paused to look at the baobab tree, its silhouette stark against the twilight sky. The whispers of the past seemed to mingle with the laughter and voices of the present, a symphony of old and new. In that moment, she understood that her vision had transcended her initial dreams, growing into something enduring, a legacy woven through the fabric of many communities, sustained by the shared beats of countless hearts and the whispers of ancient trees. As the years unfolded, the network of learning hubs flourished, each becoming a cornerstone in its community, nurturing minds and preserving the rich tapestry of cultural heritage. Amara's vision had seeded a movement, one that grew beyond the borders of her own village, across landscapes, and through the hearts of many. Her dream had woven itself into the daily lives of countless individuals, enriching them with the power of knowledge and the strength of community ties. In Amara's village, the original learning hut stood proudly beneath the ancient baobab, now surrounded by new structures that supported various educational and cultural activities. The village had transformed into a vibrant center of learning and exchange, drawing visitors not just from nearby regions, but from distant places, eager to witness and participate in the community's thriving cultural exchange. The annual festival had grown in scale and significance, becoming a regional event that celebrated the diversity and unity of various cultures. Each year, the festival's flame was kindled afresh, symbolizing the enduring light of knowledge and community. It was a time when old friendships were rekindled and new ones formed, under the canopy of stars and the watchful eyes of the ancestors. Amara, older now, with lines of wisdom etching her face, continued to lead with grace and insight. Her role had evolved over the years. She was now a mentor to younger leaders emerging within the network, sharing her experiences and guiding them in their efforts to adapt and grow their own hubs. Her passion for education and her commitment to cultural preservation remained undiminished, a constant flame burning brightly in her heart. Chikai, ever supportive, had taken a step back from the day-to-day activities, but remained a revered figure in the village. His early resistance transformed into the deepest pride for his daughter's achievements. In his twilight years, he often sat under the baobab, carving small figures from wood, each a miniature guardian of the stories and traditions he had helped preserve. One cool evening, as the sun set in a spectacular display of reds and oranges, Amara joined her father under the baobab. The village was quiet, the day's activities winding down into peaceful twilight murmurs. "Father, do you remember the day I told you about my dream for the learning hut?" Amara asked, her voice soft with nostalgia. Chikai looked up from his carving, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "I do, my child. It was here, under this very tree. I saw the fire in your eyes, the determination. I knew then that something extraordinary was about to unfold." Amara leaned against the sturdy trunk, feeling its rough bark against her back. "It has grown beyond what I ever imagined. It's not just about preserving our stories anymore. It's about creating new ones, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," Chikai agreed, nodding slowly. "Just as the baobab grows from a tiny seed to a giant that oversees the savanna, your dream grew. It sheltered many, teaching them not just to look back with reverence, but also to look forward with hope." As stars began to pepper the sky, their conversation drifted to the many stories that had passed under the baobab's watchful presence. Each tale, whether of joy, sorrow, challenge, or triumph, was a thread in the fabric of their community, woven tightly to withstand the test of time. The night deepened, and the fireflies began their luminous dance around them, mirroring the stars above. In the silence filled with the whispers of the baobab, Amara felt a profound connection to everything her life's work had touched. She realized that the legacy she would leave was not just in the structures built or the knowledge passed down, but in the lives changed, the community strengthened, and the cultures celebrated. Under the baobab, amid the chorus of crickets and the rustle of leaves, Amara and Chikai shared a quiet understanding that their journey had been one of extraordinary transformation. A legacy not just preserved, but lived and breathed beneath the endless African sky.